Margins. I'm your host, Ralph Newell, and today we're going to talk about Native American higher ed and some of the issues and things going on right now. Based on recent data, Native American participation in higher education is characterized by significant underrepresentation, low retention and graduation rates, and a sharp decline in enrollment over the last decade. These issues are compounded by systemic barriers such as financial instability, lack of culturally relevant support at non-tribal institutions, and inadequate preparation in underfunded primary and secondary schools. Um, just recently, the indigenous student enrollment has dropped 40% in the last decade between 2010 and 2021, amounting to a loss of tens of thousands of students. And currently, only 16% of Native Americans aged 25 to 64 hold a bachelor's degree. Now, I don't want to preach doom and gloom. It's not all doom and gloom. There are several positive developments that are improving Native American participation in higher education through persistent, though there are still persistent challenges. But there's growing visibility, there's targeted support programs and dedicated institutions that are fostering environments where Native students can succeed academically while maintaining strong connections to their cultural heritage. So to discuss this further, we'd like to welcome Sara LaBarge, the Director of the Strategic Partnerships at Native Forward, and she also is an alum of the Native Forward Scholars Fund. So you guys are like the largest direct provider of scholarships to Native students, and you've supported over 22,000 students from 500 plus tribes from all 50 states. Welcome, Sara. Can you tell us a little bit about additionally about the overall mission of Native Forward?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Hello, my name is Sara LaBarge. We like you mentioned, we are the largest scholarship provider to Native students in the country. Um, our true mission really focuses on meeting the unmet need of the scholar. So when we think about the work that we do, we look at the student holistically and say, what are the barriers that this one person is going through, and how can we help them overcome those barriers? So our focus is heavily on meeting the unmet need of the scholars that apply to our scholarship programs. But in addition to that, for us, it's not enough to give them scholarship dollars and send them off and wish them well. We are very tied to our students in a way that is culturally meaningful to them. So there are a lot of services that institutions of higher education don't necessarily naturally offer Native students, and those are the places that we hope to kind of sub in and help students navigate higher education. We have a lot of students who are first generation still going through. And so for us, it's important to help them navigate in that new space for them.
Yeah. No, thank you. But before we really get into the nuts and bolts of, your organization, I think you sit in a very unique position of being an alum of the program and now working there. So you have a double set of lenses there on it. So, but before we get into, like I said, what exactly Native Forward is doing, could you tell us and share a little bit more about your journey to higher ed and how, your identity as a Native American shaped your experiences along that journey?
Absolutely. So I was born and raised on the Menominee Indian Reservation, which is northeast Wisconsin. I went to our local high school, which is probably about 95-ish% Native American students. And so um, prior to me going to college, I didn't have much experience with other populations. Growing up in this space, there's Native people everywhere. And so when I did decide to pursue undergraduate work, it was very much a culture shock for me. I had such a challenging time my first semester, not having resources that I usually have, not having like-minded perspectives, I guess, was very challenging to navigate. I had an advisor at my, I think, second semester, after I didn't do so well, who actually was a Native person. So
Mm,
she recognized that I may have, I may need a little bit more extra help just based on my identity and where I came from. And I think that was really the deciding factor for me, to decide to pursue higher education as a career. She made such a huge impact on my life that I wanted to then turn around and do the same thing for other Native students. So that was kind of the catalyst of my career. After my undergraduate work, I returned back home to the reservation and was immediately offered a position at our local TCU, which is a tribal college and university. I
mhm,
served as an advisor here for probably about, I want to say 7 to 8 years, before
mhm.
joining Native Forward, which was then American Indian Graduate Center. And so I've been with Native Forward since 2015. And one of the cool things now is I'm still able to contribute to my tribe in a way that is meaningful to me. I currently serve as the board vice chair for our tribal college and university. So I'm able to give back in that space, and I really enjoy that.
Well, being back so close to home, and I'm not sure if you said you were actually living on the reservation now, but being so close to other Native potential students that are just beginning their journey, um, how are you working with them, or what advice do you give those potential students?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's always important to leverage the resources that we have,
Hmm.
in our wheelhouses. And so, for me, I always advise students to look up different scholarship programs. It doesn't have to be just Native Forward. Of course, we definitely want them to check out Native Forward, but there's a huge amount of scholarships that are available to Native students that they can access, but also different programming that's available and designed to help them be successful. I think that's really important as well. And then one thing that our TCU does really well, which I think speaks volumes to the TCU effort as a whole, is creating that sense of community on campus. And so there are a lot of events and programming that is specifically designed with families in mind. And so we want to embrace the student, but not only just the student, their family as well. And so really leveraging the resources that are available to them, I think is important, and offering myself as kind of a mentor or a person they can reach out to, someone that if they have questions, if they need a letter of recommendation, I'm more than happy to be of service to those students.
You got me thinking now about your local TCU, and I'm just sort of thinking of it in terms of like a community college, for example, in a sense of when you finish there, whether it be getting your associates, I'm not sure if yours offers a 4-year degree, but are there transfer and articulation agreements with, non-native schools like within Wisconsin or in other states? Do some of those programs exist?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So, the TCU, the College of Menominee Nation that I'm on the board for, we do have some bachelor degree programs, but we also have those agreements in place to have our students who want to advance in different areas, pursue that education further. And I know that that's kind of the norm across the board for all TCUs.
Okay. Okay. So, again, like I said, you're sitting in a very neat position of being a student that, benefited from Native Forward, and now you're working there. So, um, as your time as a student to coming aboard in 2015 to now, how do you see their impact? How has it evolved, both as a recipient and now being part of the team? Have you seen it?
That is a very good question. And when I think back on it, it's kind of been really exciting and beautiful to watch because we went from, very prescriptive agreements with some funders on how to sort of deliver scholarship programs to us really building our best practices, within the organization to serve Native students,
Mhm.
and now leveraging those best practices in a way that's meaningful to our students because we've been able to secure some very substantial unrestricted funding that has allowed us to say, this is what our students want, this is what they say they need, and this is what we're going to do. We don't have to buy into things, to be able to keep the lights on, as it were. We are very intentional about how we deliver our scholarship programs, how we deliver the programming, how we set up all of the outreach, every single aspect that goes into the organization is very intentional. And I've just seen such a transformation in that way, but also scaling. So when I first started as a staff member,
Mhm.
I think we were giving out roughly 3 million annually to Native students on one side of the organization, and now we've built that into, 5 times impact. And what can we do moving forward? I think that's the exciting piece.
Mhm. Mhm. Um, as I was stating earlier, um, there's just been a decline in enrollment. Um, and when I first was reading this information, I was thinking like, oh, it might be across the board for a lot of underrepresented groups with some of the legislation changes like that. But this decline in enrollment for Native students has happened, way earlier than that. Do you have any intelligence on why you think there's been this precipitous drop in enrollment by Native Americans for higher ed?
I don't have anything strong to pinpoint exactly what it is, but I will say what we're seeing at Native Forward is we're actually seeing on our side an increase in scholarship application requests.
Okay.
Is a unique anomaly that's happening if the enrollment is going down. But we are becoming more well known across the country with our intentional efforts and outreach. Also, our marketing efforts, and then also word of mouth from students who receive scholarship funding. So, our increase from last year to this year was 35% applications. So, the need that we're seeing is actually growing.
Okay. Good.
So
Oh.
that doesn't align, but that's what we're seeing at the
Mhm.
organization.
Yeah. Um, I think about that. You're saying, okay, the needs are growing. I was just reading something today about tuition costs are going up so high. So is it you're serving maybe the same amount of students or less, but they just need more money? Um,
It's always a balancing act because we want
mhm,
to be able to make a meaningful contribution to a Native student's education. And we have very prescriptive indicators
mhm,
of where students would come in and likely persist, based on, at what point does a student get a student loan? At what point do they decide not to do a student loan and potentially drop out? So we try to be very intentional about at least meeting, that one number. And then if we can meet higher than that, definitely.
yeah. You know, um, Financial barriers are obviously probably the biggest barrier that keeps a lot of people from going to college, and that's just across the board.
Mhm.
Um, but what are some of the other barriers that you guys see that may be unique or just consistent as well for students as they try to get into higher ed?
We did a study recently on college affordability with our students in conjunction with a couple other organizations. And I think that was in 2022, we did that. Um, and it's really basic needs it comes down
Mhm.
to. So it's things like food, transportation, housing. Those are like the bigger indicators of what are the barriers to our students attending college. And so for us, we know that roughly 16% of the scholars that we fund are homeless.
Mhm.
Roughly 31% of our students have indicated that they've experienced food insecurity. And so it's those basic needs that we continue to try to rally around as an organization, but also with our partners. We established a student emergency fund to try to help um, mitigate some of those issues and obstacles that our students face, but it's always an ongoing need.
Yeah. Um, how about access? Do you think there's college access across, when you look across the landscape for Native students, are there access issues for going to school?
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially with the more recent affirmative action decisions that have happened, but I think for us, it's more focused on those basic needs, but I do think that access issue is also one of the concerns as well.
Yeah. So, now let's look at Native students who transfer in from the TCUs or just going right into, a PWI. What type of support systems do they need, whether it comes from the faculty and staff, student services, et cetera?
I think it's a good mix, but really what it boils down to is there a community? Does this person have a sense of belonging on campus? And what we've seen for sure is administrative and faculty representation. What does your curriculum look like? Are you teaching? Is there representation in that space? Are there student groups on campus where a student might feel more comfortable? Are there Native American houses? Do you have programming focused on Native Americans? So I think it's all of those things bundled together and then making sure that the students' voices are heard as well.
And I don't have the answer to this, and I know we at the EDU Ledger do not as well. I mean, I think we all are moving into uncharted territory right now.
Mhm.
In regards to, there being a Native American center on campus, or even some of this stuff is being attacked in the curriculum, like when the settlers came here, they didn't do anything to the natives. They didn't bring slaves. I mean, that's all the kind of stuff that they're trying to erase. Um, have you guys looked at any of this to see, what you think the impacts will be or how you want to counter counter it in any way, shape, or form?
That's a really good question. I don't think we've seen any of that yet happening.
Hmm.
I do know that one thing that we're really focused on is maintaining a strong relationship with our students.
Hmm.
And so, whenever there's harmful rhetoric that's presented, we really take the time to reach out to them to understand what they're going through and share some perspective and insights. But then also maybe do some advocacy work at the institutional level to help understand why these things are happening or what we can do to be a part of to affect change. So like you said, there isn't one answer yet, but we haven't quite seen that come through for our students
Hmm.
yet. I'm hoping it doesn't, but
Right, right.
yeah.
Sure. Um, you know, one thing I think you said earlier was about, how opening the community is at these institutions. And one of those things about being an open institution is having people there that look like you or know your history. Um, but there are some native scholars, obviously out there in higher ed, but how can institutions, you know, strengthen their admission and retention efforts, and can they use, like, how can Native scholars be used on campus to help that? And I hate to say it's their job, but we always get that people of underrepresented groups, if they work on their campus, they end up having to do more than their lion's share. But what role have you seen Native scholars play in helping other Native students?
It's such a huge role and it makes a huge difference to students to come to a campus and see someone that they can relate to. And I will share a perfect example. We recently started a what we call the Empowering Leaders Summit. And so for us, what we wanted to do, what the idea was, is let's bring all of these brilliant Native student leaders together to be in community, to talk about ideas, to share concerns that they have about their institution. And so we saw this beautiful convening happen. And what unnaturally occurred was they've created these cohorts of these are my, you know what I mean? These are my people. This is my group. I'm going to continue to talk with them offline, not on their campuses, but we have group chats for them. And so they've created their own sense of community in that space. And so I think what that representation does, it allows someone to be who they are and to show up to campus authentically and say, I can be this, I can be who I am because so and so's here. I think that is tremendous. If there's more students, then great. If there's just
Hmm.
one, I had for myself, when I attended undergrad, there was only me and one other Native student at the time. And so I clung to, she was a little bit older than I was, so I clung to her because I needed that sense of home to be able to make it through. And thankfully, she kind of took me under her wing. She took care of me. But it really was just my sense of belonging in a place where I felt like I didn't belong.
Wow, yeah. I mean, yes, I mean, one of two. That's almost shocking, if you will, to me in some regards. Um, do you have, you know, I met some, I mean, not to stereotype people, but like, you say, oh, a person, well, they didn't look like they were black or they didn't look like they were native. Do you think there were native students there that that did not identify, that you just didn't know? Um,
I don't think so because during the
mhm,
time I worked in the cultural diversity office, and so it was kind of my um, I guess, charged to
mhm,
help set up mentorship and stuff like that. And so we had a pretty good grasp on who was there, who was native. And by the time that I left, that did end up increasing, which was great. I also think it was a PWI, it was
mhm,
private Catholic institution, and so it might have been a little bit more challenging for Native students
mhm.
to gain access. But yeah, by the time I did leave, there were a lot more. And then when I went back as an alum, they did have a Native focus group, which was great. We had a lot of good
Okay.
leaders there now, so I'm very grateful for that. But yeah, I just think that there wasn't that many at the time.
Right, right. Moving forward, native forward, no pun intended. Um, what are some of the organization's key goals and objectives that you guys are looking at tackling in the coming years?
I think one of the biggest thing, well, our core, the core of what we do is scholarships. And so
Hmm.
our main focus has been really trying to move the needle on that unmet need piece and thinking critically about how we can leverage the resources that we have to create more of an abundance to be able to scale as much as we
Hmm.
want to.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that's high priority. We're also one of the priorities that we have is to just become more known throughout Indian country. So like I mentioned, the 35% increase, we're very intentional about the spaces that we're in and trying to spread the word about the resources that Native Forward has because not everyone knows about them. So that's one of our goals as well. Let's see what else. I think one of the things that I mean, every nonprofit organization looks to achieve is the greater giving, the unrestricted giving. So having the resources that we need to be able to flex and do the work that we need to do is super important, super critical to our students to be able to shift when we need to, especially in more volatile times. So we
Hmm.
want to be
Hmm.
more proactive where we can, but also be able to be reactive if we need to.
We don't live in this country alone. It's not really good to be isolated. So you talked about trying to be known, more outside of the Native community. Can you describe, any initiatives or partnerships that you guys are doing that's extending the Native Forward's reach beyond the Native community right now?
Yeah, we have a ton of them, but I think the highlight of it is bringing everything back to the student. So,
Mm-hmm.
our goal and mission is to try to shine a light on how brilliant our students are and how little resources that we have. We do have a lot of resources, I will say that, but in comparison to the big picture,
Mm-hmm.
if we want to meet the unmet need of all the students currently in our pool, it's going to take $150 million annually. And that is a huge goal, right? That's a huge goal. So I think our core focus is really on zeroing in how can we inch more and more toward that goal to be able to serve the students. So we have lots of ongoing things. We have several partnerships all throughout the country, and really just focus on bringing it back to the student. So the student is at the heart of everything that we do
Yeah. Um, that's a big amount you just said, $150 million.
annually.
Yeah, exactly. The annual part. Because when you first said it, I was like, oh, okay, well, gosh. You guys, as well as a number of other MSIs, minority serving institutions, have been a benefactor of, the kindness of Mackenzie Scott. I understand she gave you guys $50 million, and I was like, okay, well, they're a third of the way there, but not at all. So, but her gift was an unrestricted gift to you guys. So, are you? I guess two questions there. Are you using that 50 million like for an endowment to just let it grow, or you had to put it right into what you guys are doing? And then, what was the organization's reaction to the gift? Like, how did that come about?
Well, obviously, a gift of that size is insane and amazing, and it's going
Mm-hmm.
to do so much for our students. So the initial response was, "Oh my gosh, this is so great!" It was shocking, especially after, this is the second gift that we've received from her, and
Okay.
so we received 20 million prior,
Mm-hmm.
and we're super grateful for that. We made it work for us. We made it work for our students, and so when we saw the second gift come through, it was just amazing to know, and I'm so appreciative of Mackenzie Scott and her trust-based philanthropy approach, to really let these organizations determine what's best for them. So,
Mm-hmm.
so we're the subject matter experts. We are the ones who know what our students go through every day. We are the ones who can say, this is what we need and this is when we need it. And for her to just give in that fashion is profound, I think. I wish a lot more philanthropists gave in that way. I think it's very inspiring. In terms of what we're going to do with it, we just recently had a board meeting, which was amazing after we received the gift, and so we're doing an immediate response of $2 million right into the hands of our scholars. So we're repurposing, putting scholarship dollars out immediately, and then
Mm-hmm.
also the board is being very intentional with Angelique, our CEO, about how we can move forward and model some potential scenarios of how to make this work for us long
Mm-hmm.
term and work for our students. And so I think we're kind of in that space right now, which is exciting and also a heavy lift. So, but we're going to get there very soon.
You definitely would call, Mackenzie Scott and others who have donated. I'm talking about non-native allies is what I'm speaking of here. So what message would you share with, potential non-native allies about the significance of investing in Native education and leadership?
That is the perfect question. And I think at the core of what I wanted to share with you today, and that is we're in a place that we we have the base of what we want to do, and we really want to catapult this moment into something incredibly great. And I know that $50 million is a huge amount of money. I recognize that. I also recognize that $150 million is a huge amount of money. And I feel like we're in just a pivotal moment of where we can leverage our networks and this energy and work together as a team to really meet the unmet need of Native scholars. And that's what my goal is with this next gift. So I think that's where we want to be as an organization as well.
Yeah. What about how does Native Forward promote, again, getting outside of working with non-natives, any type of cross-cultural understanding or collaborations in some of your programming and efforts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that stuff is kind of baked into what we do
Mhm.
intentionally. typically those supporters and those allies that come to us have done a certain level of research, that, they have a base knowledge of who we are, what we do, kind of a thing. But really, when we get into the why of the students, like
Mm-hmm.
here's the information that you need to know on why this is happening, what can we do to solve for it. That's when we kind of play a heavier factor, I feel like. And so for us, it's that piece, but also when we go out externally, being very intentional about gaining allies is important to us. And
Mm-hmm.
so that education piece is always present, and trying to gain more allies, I think, is a part of that national visibility piece that we're also working toward.
Yeah. So when you're out there advocating, Native Forward is out there now advocating for Native students. To get that message out there, what's the biggest challenge you guys face?
I don't, I mean, I feel like we're in a really good place.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just scaling right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We have the best practices, we have and it's that capacity piece, right? We want to grow and we want to scale. I think it's the scaling piece that we're looking
Mm-hmm.
toward
Mm-hmm.
next to tackle, because we have everything else in place to make it happen. So,
Okay. So I get you when you want to scale. So if I'm, potential, investor, let's just say,
are you?
what
Are you, Ralph?
potentially, I mean, every penny counts, right?
Yes.
I only got pennies. No, I'm just kidding. Um, but I'm saying like, if you're gonna talk to me or talk to some other organization or individual, are there stories? Is there like a good anecdotal story or an outcome that you guys share that
Mhm.
highlights the broader societal benefits of Native Forest work?
Absolutely. There are like thousands of them. There's over
Hmm.
22,000 stories. And so, one of the things we've been more intentional about since probably 2017, when Angelique came on, was really collecting those stories in a meaningful way that we could reshare to the general community about the impacts that they're having on our Native students. So, we do things like Student of the Month now, we do Student of the Year, where we can really elevate our students' voices to share more about some of the amazing work that they're doing. We've also implemented highlighting some of our more notable alum, which are very powerful people in powerful spaces. But in addition to that, we've been very intentional about collecting that quantitative data as well. So we've
Hmm.
done economic impact studies that support, like, here's the exact impact and ROI that this organization has had on society as a whole. And so we try to be very intentional about, creating this package before we deliver it to those who might be interested in supporting the organization. But our students' voices are the most powerful, and so we try to amplify them by bringing them to the forefront.
Hmm. And for you guys, how do you measure success?
I think it's a lot of different factors. We look at things like retention and graduation rates.
Hmm.
So we did a study recently that indicated, our retention rates were higher than the national average for Native American students for undergrad. Ours was like 69%, as opposed to the national average of 41%. And
Hmm.
then we did a very specific study on one scholarship program for only graduate level students, and that had a 95% graduation rate. And so we look at numbers like that. We also look at those qualitative stories that are happening. We look at how much of an impact we're making in tribal communities and tribal spaces. Where are alumni now? So it's a variety of different things, but I think all very important things. There's no one specific indicator that we look at.
Hmm. Um, and I'm just making assumptions here that your footprint is maybe it's not 100%, but like you have penetrated, a lot of native communities and reservations. How is the outreach to, natives that no longer live on a reservation and are, quote unquote, living in middle America, let's just say,
Mhm.
how do you reach those students?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important. And I think for us, we do it through the institutions themselves. So we have
Okay.
strong relationships built, especially in very urban areas where there's high Native population. We
Hmm.
have connections in a lot of different spaces. And so we're reaching out through those institutional staff members to reach potential students in the area. But while also we go to a lot of national level conferences that are typically in bigger cities. And so we tend to double do, like we're going to do the conference, but we're also going to do like a side meeting or a networking event to say, hey, you want to come learn more about Native Forward? Come to our event that's happening whenever. So we try to multi-prong approach it.
Hmm.
But I think we heavily rely on our institutional relationships, but then also in-person outreach and just making sure we're intentional about not forgetting any specific population in any specific area.
Okay. Um, I got sometimes I just get crazy thoughts in my head, but like I was listening to you and I was thinking about you were saying you were from Wisconsin and I don't know
Mhm.
why I just digressed in my head and I was like, okay, she's from Wisconsin. You must like the Packers because you said you were north of Green Bay, right?
Is this off the record? No, I'm just
Oh
kidding.
no, no, this is like for real.
No, I actually am not a Packer fan. I'm a Chicago Bears fan, which is pretty much the worst thing I can be inside of Wisconsin.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
My mom was born and raised in Chicago, and so we've always been Bears fans. But my husband
Oh,
is a Packer
okay.
fan, huge
That
Packer
makes
fan.
sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. So then what about the Brewers? Since they're doing,
I'm a Red Sox fan.
oh goodness.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened, but I just like specific players, and David Ortiz has always been one of my favorite players. I recently got to go to a Boston Red Sox game where they played the Yankees, and so that was like the best thing that could have ever happened to me. Not a Brewers fan, very happy for them. Hope they continue to do well in the series, and I guess we'll see where it goes.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay. Um, Getting towards the end here, just I'm going back and I was just thinking about just going back to to the gift that you guys got from Mackenzie Scott, and if there are others out there that you want to mention, that's great, and I don't mind you sharing. But what message would you give out there to people that are listening that would that could be potential donors about the importance and the power of what their gift would mean to the organization and the students?
Um, I think it's something that you said just before, which is you could donate pennies, but there is no gift that is too small that would make an
Mhm.
impact for Native students. And I think when you think of, oh, they got a $50 million gift, like, do I really need to make a smaller contribution? Or how the mindset is. Um, I think that those gifts matter the most because if you see an influx of them, they really add up and they make a difference. So don't think that you can't make a difference at the organization. As a Native woman, as a Native student, and somebody who went through one of the scholarship programs that we have, I can genuinely say that I would not be where I'm at without this organization. I know firsthand the impact that we have on Native students because I've lived it. And I came from a family that was not well off. I came from a family that did not have experience with higher education at all. And so my parents wanted good things for me. They just didn't know how to get me there. And those donations, the support, the allyship, the volunteerism, every single thing adds up to create this impact that we have. And I think it's so powerful.
Yeah. No, you actually I like that answer, and that's actually a good segue. You're talking about your parents and just looking at the numbers, I think I mentioned earlier about the percentage of Native adults that have degrees, and um, it's low for when you look at a lot of adults. So I think a lot of us, when we think about going to college, we're thinking of people that are 18 years old getting out of high school. But there are a lot of
Mhm.
adult learners who who did not get the opportunity to go because they had to work, or this, that, and the other. Um, how many adult learners do you guys serve, or do you have specific programs to support adult education, or people to go to technical schools or just get certifications?
No, that's a really good question. I'd have to look at our annual report, but I can definitely send you that information. I do know that it tends to be a little bit more non-traditional than traditional
Hmm.
students.
Hmm.
I know for sure at the TCU that I sit on the board for, we have a lot of the majority of our students are non-traditional. And I think that happened because when when students reach graduation and they're ready to look at colleges, things like the basic needs aren't being met, things like the access isn't there. And so, one of the things that I love about Native Forward is that we actively reach out to say, what are the things that are holding you back and how can we help you overcome them? I think we're seeing that shift now more toward traditional level students because we are being very intentional about, yeah, we know after high school we had to get a job to be able to support our family. Well,
Right.
now that's not the case. The parents are growing up, they have more support and understanding for how higher ed works. And so you see younger folks coming through who have more of a support system, who have more knowledge about higher education. And so I think in that way, Native Forward kind of serves in that space to say, what do you need? What's holding you back? How can we help you? And then actually get them to that space.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I guess I kind of got two last questions. The first one will be about the support that you actually give students. So we didn't really get into that, but how do you guys support the students financially? I mean, do you provide funding for, rent, or people need a car? Is it for books? Is it just tuition? How does that work? And how do you determine what a student gets?
So it's everything.
Mm.
The way that we do it is we work directly with the financial aid offices. And
Okay.
so the financial aid officer is building the aid package. They build in the transportation, they build in the housing, they build in whatever the student needs are, they build that in. And then we go back and have a conversation with them and layer that with here's what we're able to offer. Where can we make some allowances where needed? Sometimes Native Forward has to advocate on behalf of our students if we're seeing like, a financial aid officer didn't include a certain expense that the student will need. We will
Mhm.
go back and advocate for that to be included so that we can cover it on our side. So it's a lot of direct work with the institutions.
Okay. So it's mostly with the institution. So if you had a student who was got everything they needed, but the last thing they needed was, I don't have a computer.
Oh
You
yeah.
know,
Yep.
you
That's our student emergency fund. We would point them to that to access it, ask them to price out what they're looking for, what they need for their courses, and then they can access that fund as well.
okay, okay. And I guess the last thing, this is more about the organization. Um, so I understand, the core of getting scholarships for students and all that. How much advocating, if any, do you guys do in regards to policy and other research?
Hmm, that's a really good question. I think historically,
Hmm.
we've been trying to push into those spaces. We're probably not quite at the place we want to be. But I think we're moving in a direction that would allow us to move the needle more in terms of policy and research on that side. Recently, we had in our most recent strategic plan, one of those areas was focusing on research, and so um, I think part of zeroing in on our mission is first achieving like what's our core goal.
Hmm.
And so we found out relatively quickly that we needed to allocate a lot more resources into scholarship administration, programming, and support. So we kind of pivoted a little bit, but I think as we continue to grow and scale, we're going to be moving more in that direction.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's ironic from a strategic standpoint. We've been doing some of that at the EDU Ledger. And
Mhm.
so we would welcome the opportunity to work with you guys, co-partner on some research and things like that. So We definitely open to having those conversations. I have learned a lot today, so I really appreciate your time. But I wanted to give you an opportunity to have the last word. Is there anything that you want to say to our audience that, maybe I didn't ask, but you wanted to get out there?
No, I just wanted to thank you so much for giving us a platform to have a conversation, to share our message. Um, and so much of the conversation, Native voices aren't included. And
Mhm.
so it's so impactful to me to be able to share more about the work that we do, and then also hopefully gain more allies along the way.
Yeah. So let people know how they can find you guys or reach you.
Yeah, so www.nativeforward.org is our website. And feel free to take a look at the scholarships and the programming that we offer. But also, I would challenge you to look into how you can be an ally. How can you volunteer for us? How can you make a gift? We have several different ways to give. It could be a one-time donation, it can be a recurring donation. We have planned giving set up as well if that's an option for you. We just want to include you in our mission as much as we can and make the most impact where it makes sense for everyone.
All right. Thank you, Sarah, so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Yes,
All right.
thank you.